people protesting in central London. And we are absolutely adamant that we will exercise our democratic right to protest and to march to the seat of government at the time that these MPs are pushing through legislation which threatens to sell off future generations' hopes and aspirations to be able to access higher and further education in this country. And that is why you're seeing so many school and college students today taking action alongside their brothers and sisters at universities. You will see more occupations across the country. Tomorrow you will see thousands of students coming out of the occupations and protesting on the street. They're protesting against the culture of debt. They're protesting against the culture of criminalisation of protests, and they are protesting against the entire agenda of this government. And so I'll just finish with the words of Tommy, the young student who was quoted in the press yesterday from London Nautical School when he said, "We will not give in." I think that's probably going to become a motto of this movement and future social protest movements against the coalition government. Thank you. Okay, so
yeah, I've got a couple. Mark, I didn't get your surname.
Bergfeld. B-E-R-G.
B-E-R-G.
F-E-L-D.
F-E-L-D. Thanks. And your estimate of 30, is that 30,000 you reckon are coming tomorrow?
The police estimates 30,000. I can give you a few facts and figures from across the country of coaches coming down, just to give you an insight. In Sheffield, Education Activist Network has received one coach from GMB, the union. Another has managed to get another coach from the students' union, and is filling both of these up, and hopefully we'll have a third coach on the road tomorrow morning. Birmingham is bringing 2 coaches. Manchester has had a scheme which is called Sponsor a Student, in which ordinary people can give 15 or 10 pounds or whatever their donation they wish in order to support students coming down to London. That shows that there's broad public support, because until now Manchester's students are bringing more than 100 students down tomorrow, who will be spending the nights in the occupations, who will be coming down and joining us in London. I also think that we aren't allowed to dismiss the fact that in Scotland, where the Brown Review doesn't even hold sway, the Anti-Cuts Action Network, which is an affiliate group of the Education Activist Network, is holding a demonstration at the Scottish Parliament at the same time, and is going to be, and more than 5,000 people are going to be expected. The other thing is that I believe that you will have not only students coming out in full force, but entire sections of the population, because there's a clear understanding that the students need every support that they can get, and so I think the demonstration will be far more likely to attract people that we haven't seen on the demonstrations so far, and so I think the estimate of 30,000, 20,000 to 30,000, I think is a good estimate.
Okay. And have you had your final conversation with the police about the route?
Yes, we have had a conversation with the police about the route. Believe we might have one more meeting with them, but I think we pretty much determined it's going to go down Holborn, on the Strand, Trafalgar Square, round All Scars Parade, onto Parliament Square, back up Whitehall, and then to join other people there. But I mean, what the slogan we're pushing is March on Parliament, because that's what we're here to do.
But so, then you think you'll go to Parliament Square and back up Whitehall, and then congregate at Trafalgar Square, or end up with the NUS at Victoria?
And the idea is to go to Victoria and back.
Oh, right. But go Victoria and back.
Victoria Embankment.
Oh, Embankment, right, sorry, I'm with you. So it will be kind of an accumulation of, because the NUS are holding that vigil, are you going to kind of end up with that? The noble candlelit vigil.
It's a glow stick vigil.
Glow stick vigil, apparently a bit of a fire
hazard. The thing is that we aren't counterposing the movement which has emerged on the streets against the official bodies of the trade union movement, the UCU, and the NUS. What we're though saying, and a legitimate criticism of those actions, are is that we're not mourning the death of higher education at this point, and thus vigil is not sufficient in order to strengthen the side of the trade union movement, to strengthen the side of the working class and the students in this country. However, we believe that we need to be working with our trade union leaders and with our National Union of Students leaders when they're good and working, but at the same time making the point of the fact that the students' movement has by far overtaken and has by far outflung the propositions and the proposals, as well as the official bodies of the union, and that's why a lot of people who will be joining the protest tomorrow will be joining at the final rally, because London UCU region is bringing a lot of members to the demonstration at Mallet Street, and they most likely want to be joining the rally by UCU and NUS at the end. I think a lot of other students who will be coming from different students' unions up and down the country will be wanting to join the demonstration as well. But the clear message that our demonstration is sending out is March on Parliament.
I don't think glow sticks are going to cut it at this stage.
It's rave against the cuts time.
So the 20 to 30,000, is that kind of your figure that's going to go from here? Because the NUS is saying they've got 10,000 of their own, or is that an accumulation of both groups?
I think that we will get between 20 and 30,000 on our demonstration.
I also think estimates at this stage are all so far up in the air. That,
yeah.
It could easily be 10,000. It could easily be 100,000.
Yeah.
But there's also going to be tens of thousands across the country, because a lot of school and college students, of course, can't come to London. So what we're saying to them is protest in your local towns and cities, either against tax dodging businesses like Topshop and Vodafone, or city and town halls against the government cuts, and that's the sort of wide message.
I think, Mark, you said earlier that these are protests supported by the majority of students, supported by the majority of workers, supported by the majority of people throughout the country. There are over 120,000 students in the University of London. There are over 300,000 students within London as a whole, not including sort of school students. The largest protest so far has seen around 50,000 students take to the street. How are you maintaining that this is a majority supporting these protests?
It's very simple. If you read the figures that the Daily Star has published of how much percent of their readers support this so-called student riots, it ended up with 56%. 70% of the Daily Mail readers agreed with the student protests, and any student you might ask today will support the fact that students are taking it to the streets. Many workers are supporting the fact that we're taking it to the streets, and even in the tube, people have recognized me and are saying how great it is that the students are protesting. The fact that the numbers that you mentioned and the fact that you mentioned so and so many students go to university, you've only had so and so many in the streets, shows that there's a misperception about students. Students aren't only people like myself who have gone into higher education directly after they finished school, but are many people who go into education after they've started careers. They have families to care about, they have part-time jobs that they have to work at, and they're under the burden of debt. And if you have debt, you're most likely to be dominated by fear rather than by anger. And I think it is our task of catalyzing that fear that many students feel, of that many workers feel, into the anger to build a mass movement. And I believe having the biggest figure since the late 1960s on the street shows that we're a mass movement, not only against the cuts, but also against the commodification and marketization of our education.
I think it's worth saying very briefly as well that during the Stop the War movement, it was always at least 50% of the British population were opposed to the war in some form, and yet you only had 2 million people marching on the streets. But sort of, for us, we always understand within protest movements that not everyone will come on a demonstration, but it's the kind of active minority which help to influence then the wider parts of the population and so on. So, that's why we can, I think, quite legitimately say that we do have a lot of support across the country, even if not all the students necessarily come on the demonstrations.
Yeah, just a number of you talked about continuing the fight, despite what happens with the vote tomorrow. If the vote does go through, do you have any specific ideas about what form that will take in the coming sort of weeks and months?
Yes, because even if the vote goes through, there's still many other things that they're proposing to cuts to education, the funding to the arts, obviously, even research funding is being cut, and of course there's the